I've been in this house for what feels like forever. The place right beside me. It used to be a funeral home that was totally abandoned. That's changed, though, in the last year or so. It started with trucks showing up super late, a bunch of fixes and a fresh coat of paint. The place was a mess before, broken windows, falling apart, you name it. But in just a few months, it was like brand new. They fixed it right up, ready to open again. Then they put up this fancy new sign, Twilight Funeral Home. At first, I wasn't thrilled about living next to a funeral home that was actually running. But I thought, hey, it's better than looking at that creepy old wreck every day. For a little bit, it was okay, almost nice even. But I never thought I'd be more afraid of the fixed-up funeral home than the old one. And here I am, wishing every night that they'd close down again, that the people working there would just leave, that the building would rot away till it's just an empty space. The first weird thing was seeing them bring in the bodies. My back porch looks right at the side of the funeral home where they unload them. They don't have a loading dock or anything, just a double door that's a bit off the ground, and they only do it at night. Now and then, when I go out for a cigarette, I watch them pull up in the hearse, backing right up to the building. The double doors swing open as it gets close. A guy inside grabs the stretcher and pulls it in. They've got some rail thing on the floor that it slides on. I know it's a bit creepy, but who wouldn't peek? That's how it started. Just a quick look while I smoked. But before long, things got strange. I had a terrible day at work once and decided to have another beer and another smoke. So I went for a smoke outside, which was very late for me. It was super cold, like the kind that gets right into your bones. I got bundled up and went to my usual spot on the porch. I wasn't even looking at the funeral home this time. I was searching the trees for the rabbit that snacks on the lawn now and then. I took a puff of my cigarette, the glow lighting up my fingers and nose. Everything else was dark. Then all of a sudden, the whole backyard lit up like it was daytime. The funeral home's floodlights, the ones I hardly ever saw used, blasted on, brighter than anything. I squinted and looked over at the building. A person walked out the back door. It was the same guy who always unloaded the bodies, but this time he wasn't pushing a stretcher. He was pulling something covered in a white sheet. I just stood there, frozen, as he walked across the lawn, pulling the sheet-covered thing behind him. He stopped halfway between the building and the trees, then just left it there. He turned around and went back inside. I let out a slow breath, seeing it fog up in the cold. My cigarette was in my hand, forgotten. What was that? I had so many questions all at once. Why is he doing that so late? What's under the sheet? And why did he just leave it there? I walked to the edge of the porch, squinting, trying to see what it was. The sheet moved in the wind, but I couldn't tell much. Whatever it was small but heavy. You could tell by the way he dragged it. Then, without warning, the lights shut off. Darkness everywhere. The wind blew, making my face hurt. It was quiet for a minute. I flicked my cigarette into the grass and turned to go inside. Whoosh. The lights turned on again. I spun around. The yard was empty. The sheet-covered thing was gone. After that night, it kept happening. Once a week, always on Sundays, the guy would come out late at night. He'd drag something wrapped in a sheet to the same spot, turn off the lights, and when they came back on, the sheet would be gone. At first, I tried to tell myself there was a good reason for it, but then I saw something else. Every Monday morning, right after it got light, he'd head into the woods between our properties, carrying an empty trash bag. A few minutes later, he'd come back. The bag was full this time. I stopped being curious and started feeling paranoid. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong over there. Was he taking organs? Was it a drug thing? I couldn't stop thinking about all the terrible things it could be. I knew it sounded crazy, But was it any crazier than dragging something into your yard in a sheet and having it vanish? I needed to know what was going on. So I made a plan. Next Sunday, when he brought the sheet into the yard and turned off the lights, I'd be ready. I wouldn't just be watching from my porch. I'd be right there, waiting, watching, and I'd finally see what or who was taking it. Sunday night came. I spent my time in my shed, hiding. It was freezing, and I couldn't feel my fingers even with gloves on. My nerves wear off and I smoked half a pack of cigarettes. I'd been out there for what felt like forever. The later it got, the more I questioned myself. Maybe it wasn't happening tonight. Maybe I should just go inside before I froze to death. But just as I started to get up, light peeked through the cracks in the shed. I held my breath. It was happening. I put my face close to the wood, looking through the cracks. There he was, the guy, dragging the thing in the sheet. I was both excited and scared. I was really going to do this, and I'd find out the truth. When he went back inside, the lights went out. This was it, now or never. I screamed at my body to run, but I stopped for a second. Then I just went for it. I ran out of the shed, my feet hitting the ground hard as I ran across the lawn. I was breathing hard in the cold air. I got to the side of the funeral home, pressed my back against the wall, and looked out into the yard. There wasn't a moon. I could barely see, but I could see the shape of the sheet-covered thing in the grass. Nothing moved. There wasn't a sound. I thought it might just disappear right in front of me. But then, something moved near it. Then another thing, and another. Dark shapes close to the ground, not much bigger than the thing in the sheet. I couldn't really see them, just dark shapes moving around the bundle like buzzards. For a few seconds they moved, quiet, doing it on purpose. And then, they all came together, making one big moving shadow. And then, nothing. Everything stopped. The shapes were gone. I squinted, but it was too dark. I tried to figure out what I'd just seen when the lights came on again. I jumped, blinking. When I could see again, I felt sick. The yard was empty. The sheet was gone. I was confused, scared, and felt like I was going to throw up. I ran back to my house, my heart pounding. The second I got inside, I locked the door. I walked around the living room, still full of adrenaline. Every few minutes, I looked out the blinds at the funeral home's yard, hoping to see something that would explain what I'd just seen. But I didn't know any more than before. The only thing I knew for sure, more than one person was taking whatever was in that yard. But they were so small, they must have been hunched over, or maybe crawling. Yeah, they had to be crawling on their hands and knees. That's the only thing that makes sense, I said to myself. I sat on the couch for hours, thinking about what it could be. Was it some kind of ritual, a deal, something even worse? I got so tired that I fell asleep. Someone knocked on the door, waking me up. I sat up, rubbing my face, trying to figure out where I was. The sun was shining through the blinds. It was morning. The knock came again. Still half asleep, I walked to the door, then stopped when I looked out the side window. I took a breath. It was him, the guy from the funeral home. What should I do? I couldn't just not answer. He'd seen me look out the window. He knew I was home. Did he see me last night? Was that why he was here? No, he couldn't have. It was too dark. He was already inside when I ran over. I told myself to stay calm, took a breath, and opened the door, trying to act like nothing was wrong. "Hey, what's up?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He smiled. "Sorry to bother you so early." "I work next door," he said, nodding toward the funeral home. "I was hoping you could help me out with something." I swallowed and tried to look like I didn't know what he was talking about. "Sure. What is it?" "Well, last night we had someone sneak around," he said, still smiling. "Our camera caught someone walking around the building. It looked like they came from your side and left the same way." He stopped and gave me a look. "I know you sit on your porch at night to smoke, so I was wondering, Did you see anything?" My heart started racing, and I felt tight in my chest. "No, sorry," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I didn't see anyone last night. It was quiet, like always." His smile went away. He just looked at me for a long time, like he was reading my face. It was quiet and uncomfortable. Then he said, "Oh, well," I figured, but I wanted to ask anyway. His eyes looked past me, looking inside my house. I moved a bit, trying to block the doorway. "Yeah, sorry I couldn't help." "Do you know what he looked like?" Maybe I'd know him. He shrugged. "Not really. The cameras aren't that good, so we couldn't really see him." I felt a bit better, but I didn't show it. "Maybe you should call the police. Someone else might have seen something I didn't," I said, my voice tight. He looked right at me, smiling again, but it felt wrong. "No, I don't need to do that," he said smoothly. "I like to take care of things myself, if you know what I mean." I swallowed. He paused, letting the words sink in before saying, "But if you do see anything, let me know." I put up with a lot, but not this. Funeral homes aren't a place for people snooping around. He kept smiling, but I knew what he meant. He went off my porch without saying goodbye. I shut the door as soon as he was gone, locking it. I knew what he was trying to do, scare me into staying out of his business. But it made me want to find out what was going on even more. I decided to go straight into the woods. It was still early. Maybe he hadn't been out there yet. If I hurried, I might find whatever he was getting, or at least something that could tell me what was going on. I put on my boots, went out the back door, and into the trees between our properties. It was easy to walk through the forest. Most of the plants were dead, and the ground was covered in leaves. I walked slowly, looking for anything that seemed out of place. Then I saw them, faint marks where something had been dragged. The leaves were messed up here and there, like something heavy had been pulled through. It wasn't a clear trail, but I could see which way it went. I kept finding it and losing it, following it as best I could. After a few minutes, the marks led me to a small open area. At the edge of the area, I saw something old set of bleachers. The blue paint was peeling off, showing the wood underneath. I walked closer. The drag marks kept going, under the bleachers. My heart was pounding. I ducked down and looked into the dark space under the wooden seats. There it was, a white sheet, torn up, covered in blood. There were pieces of plastic mixed in with the sheet, also stained red. The ground was dark, wet, and disturbed, like something bad had happened there. My brain was racing seeing it. It was like a horror movie. Then I saw something else. Tiny, bloody handprints smeared across the fabric, and around the sheet, small footprints covered in blood. Dozens of them, no bigger than a kid's. I couldn't understand what I was seeing, but then I heard it. The sound of leaves breaking under someone's feet. Someone was coming. The sound was coming from the way I'd just come from. I felt panicked. I couldn't let them see me here. I ran out of the area, hiding behind a tree as the footsteps got closer. I held my breath and listened. The footsteps stopped for a second, then started up again, slowly. I took a quick look around the tree. It was him, the guy from the funeral home. He walked into the area, heading straight for the bleachers, carrying a trash bag. I hid back behind the tree, my heart pounding. I listened as he moved around under the bleachers. Then, just as quickly as he'd come, he started walking away. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. 20. Only when I was sure he was gone did I finally come out of hiding. I walked back to the bleachers, checking to see if he was watching. When I got to the spot where the bloody sheet had been, I ducked down and looked under the bleachers. It was gone. The sheet, the plastic, everything. Even the dirt had been cleaned up, like he'd tried to hide the blood. It was like nothing had happened. I walked and ran back to my house, trying to figure out what was happening. That was a few months ago. Since then, I don't go outside much anymore, especially at night. I don't go on my porch or in my backyard. I try to pretend that funeral home isn't there, but it's getting harder to forget about it. Because ever since I went into those woods, I hear things now, things at night, and it's getting worse. Knocking on my walls, scratching at my windows. Sometimes I even hear footsteps on my roof. I don't know what's going on. I just know that I live next to a funeral home that's been feeding something, and now that something knows about me.